While the Air Force aims to prepare for the unlikely contingency of a potential engagement with near-peer rivals such as Russia or China, Air Force planners recognize that there is much more concern about having to confront an adversary which has purchased air defense technology from the Russians or Chinese. Air Force F-35 developers emphasize that, while there is no particular conflict expected with any given specific country, the service wants to be ready for any contingency. The Air Force F-35 is using open-air ranges and computer simulation to practice combat missions against the best Chinese and Russian-made air defense technologies, as a way to prepare to enemy threats anticipated in the mid-2020s and beyond. The testing is aimed at addressing the most current air defense system threats such as Russian-made systems and also focused on potential next-generation or yet-to-exist threats, Air Force officials said. Air Force officials have explained that, looking back to 2001 when the JSF threat started, the threats were mostly European-centric, Russian-made Say-10s or Say-20s. Now the future threats are looking at both Russian and Chinese-made and Asian-made threats. Air Force senior leaders have explained that Russian and Chinese digital SAMs, surface-to-air missile systems, can change frequencies and are very agile in how they operate. Surface threats from air defenses is a tough problem because emerging threats right now can see aircraft hundreds of miles away, service officials explained. Furthermore, emerging and future integrated air defense systems use faster computer processors, are better networked to one another and detect on a wider range of frequencies. These attributes, coupled with an ability to detect aircraft at further distances, make air defenses increasingly able to at times detect even stealth aircraft, in some instances, with surveillance radar. Russian media reports have recently claimed that stealth technology is useless against their air defenses. Russian-built S-300 and S-400 air defenses are believed to be among the best in the world. In addition, the national interest had reported that Russia is now working on an S-500 system able to destroy even stealthy targets at distances up to 125 miles. While the Air Force aims to prepare for the unlikely contingency of a potential engagement with near-peer rivals such as Russia or China, Air Force planners recognize that there is much more concern about having to confront an adversary which has purchased air defense technology from the Russians or Chinese. Air Force F-35 developers emphasize that, while there is no particular conflict expected with any given specific country, the service wants to be ready for any contingency. While training against the best emerging threats and what Air Force leaders call open-air ranges looks to test the F-35 against the best current and future air defenses, there is still much more work to be done when it comes to anticipating high-end, high-tech fast-developing future threats. This is where modeling and simulation play a huge part in threat preparation, developers said. The Air Force plans to bring a representation of next-generation threats and weapons to its first weapons school class in 2018. In a simulated environment, F-22s from Langley AFB in Virginia could train for combat scenarios with an F-35 at Nellis AFB, Nevada. The JSF's active electronically scanned arrays, or ESAs, our technology an F-35 pilot could use to try to identify and evade enemy air defenses. ESA on the aircraft is able to provide a synthetic aperture rendering of air and ground pictures. The ESA also brings the F-35 electronic warfare capabilities. Part of the idea with F-35 modernization is to engineered systems on the aircraft which can be upgraded with new software as threats change. Technologies such as the ESA radar, electronic attack and protection and some of the computing processing power on the airplane can be updated to keep pace with evolving threats. In the event that an F-35 is unable to fully avoid ground air defenses, the fighter can use its speed, maneuverability and air combat skill to try to defend against whatever might be sent up to challenge it. Engineered to travel at speeds greater than 1,100 miles per hour and able to reach Mach 1.6, the JSF is said to be just as fast and maneuverable as an F-15 or F-16 and bring in a whole range of additional functions and abilities. Overall, the Air Force plans to buy 1,763 JSF F-35A multi-role fighters, a number which will ultimately comprise a very large percentage of the service's fleet of roughly 2,000 fighter jets so far. At least 83 F-35s are operational for the Air Force. F-35 weapons and fourth software drop versus enemy air defenses. Many of the JSF's combat capabilities are woven into developmental software increments or drops, each designed to advance the platform's technical abilities. There are more than 10 million individual lines of code in the JSF system. While the Air Force will soon be operational with the F-35's most advanced software drop, Called 3F, the service is already working on a fourth drop to be ready by 2020 or 2021. Following this initial drop, the aircraft will incorporate new software drops in 2-year increments in order to stay ahead of the threat. The first portion of Block IV software funding, roughly $12 million, arrived in the 2014 budget, Air Force officials said. Block IV will include some unique partner weapons including British weapons, Turkish weapons and some of the other European country weapons that they want to get on their own plane, service officials explained. Block IV will also increase the weapons envelope for the U.S. variant of the fighter jet. A big part of the developmental calculus for Block 4 is to work on the kinds of enemy air defense systems and weaponry the aircraft may face from the 2020s through the 2040s and beyond.